Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 8 of my Genealogy Live interviews. So, we're a little over halfway, and I had some really great guests, and this is going to add to the next. This is going to add to all the ones I've had previously, and the next ones are going to have after my guests tonight. So, without further ado, I'll introduce Theresina Lloyd.
Hello.
Hello, Theresina.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm fine. How about yourself?
I'm fine. I would have been fine if like my internet was working like a few hours ago. So, but it's
Yeah,
working now, and let's hope it lasts.
there you go. Gotta love it, gotta
Anyway,
hate it.
yeah. So, for those of you, for those of you who mightn't know you, Teresina, why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay, well, my name is Theresina Lloyd, and I live in California, and I live in Central California now. I actually was born and raised in Southern California, and then I moved here in Central California June of last year. So I've been here because of COVID, helping take care of my grandson. Um, my I pretty much, as far as what I do for a living, is accounting. I was an office manager for 14 years at a small manufacturing company that's still up and running. In fact, excuse me, because of COVID, they've got a lot of sales. So they're doing really well. They're a filter manufacturing company. So they're considered essential medical equipment. So, but I have a bachelor's and a master's in accounting, which is kind of interesting. My field concentration for my master's was fraud, and I love fraud. I actually wanted to be a forensic accountant, but to do that, you have to be a CPA. And my bachelor's was completed when, in the United States, our economy hit rock bottom in 2008. So I was not able to get my CPA license, which is very unfortunate. So one of these days, maybe, I don't know. We'll see. Things may
I'm
get
sure you
better.
will.
Well, I'm getting up there in age. I'll be 53 in July, so it's it's like kind of coming to, sort of a culmination of an end.
Yeah. Ah, well, you're never too old to learn. That's the same for everyone. You're never too
Yeah.
old.
No.
Anyway, so what started it all off for you? What got you into genealogy?
I've actually always been interested in our family history. My mom had told us when I was a kid that we were related to Alexander Graham Bell. He was supposedly my fourth great uncle. So I couldn't do research. She couldn't do research because we didn't exactly have the money or the means to travel to the different locations. And her family was basically from back east. I'm in California. She raised us in California, but her family is from Maryland. So going to Maryland was kind of a big, a far distance, and we didn't have the money or the means to do that. So I wasn't able to do any kind of real research. In 2007, I discovered that you could actually do research online. So I started doing my research. Well, I found her family in Maryland, traced it back pretty far. Her family helped settle, or her English ancestor that I have found back then, helped settle St. Mary's County in Maryland. And there was a book written about him, Robert Cole's World, which was very interesting. I found, though, that the author had his parents wrong, so it took me 10 years to sort that out. She had his uncle's parents listed for his parents, which is
Oh dear.
interesting because, yeah, his mom, Robert Cole's mom, was a Jane, and his uncle's wife was a Jane. So I think that's where the confusion came in. But I did, with some help, finally get it sorted. But like I said, it took me 10 years. I also found that there is no connection to us to Alexander Graham Bell. So I don't think that we're related to him. I think
Oh,
because the Bell is a name, there is a Bell in our surnames. I think that the person just said that we were related. But my mom swears that my second great grandmother, her great grandmother, who told her personally when she was a kid that he was her uncle. Well, my uncle's wife says, no, he was a cousin. So if he's a cousin, he's a very, very, very distant cousin, because my Bell
Mm,
line that I have been able to trace, the last one was born in Delaware in 1801, 46 years before Alexander Graham Bell was born. So when the Bell line came here to the United States, I have not found. But like I said, if we're cousins to Alexander Graham Bell, it's very distant.
mm.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, the closest probably famous person I've told I've been, related to. I'm not related to this person when I say it, but one ancestry session, I always say this, because it always makes me laugh. There was a photo of my grandmother, uh, and it's one of my favorites of her. And people kept asking me why I put a photo of Princess Margaret up. No,
Wow.
seriously, people were gonna be like, people, people didn't even. I think they just went and saw the photo, and then they went, "Oh, that's Princess Margaret," and then they say, "Oh, wait, no, that's his grandmother." Okay, and then they kind of said, "Are you sure you don't have a royal connection?" Yes, yes, I'm sure I do not. Uh,
So
no, I don't.
your family actually is similar to them, huh?
Well, my grandmother was. I'm not sure about her parents, or well, I have photos of her parents, but not only one. Only my great grandmother's father. I have one for. No, none of them. But I'm just lucky I even have the photos anyway. But
Yeah, family
no,
photos
sadly I
don't
do not
have
have a
them.
royal connection. Sadly, I do not.
Well, I mean, it depends.
Dear me.
You may find it. I mean, according to what I've been told, and anybody who has any English ancestry has a royal connection. Um, the Scottish and the Irish, there's a possibility of that connection. So yeah, somewhere according to Relative Finder, I am Queen Elizabeth's, or she is my 12th cousin, one time removed. I think that's what it was. And I was just like, oh, okay, sure, if you say so. And with Relative Finder, I did find that I have Mayflower ancestors. That was something that it was a recent discovery. So it's
Wow.
just finding information. But that's on my mom's line. My father's line, forget it. My father's line is mainly from Mexico, and I have not been able to trace them back further than my great grandparents on both sides. My paternal great grandparents were from Jalisco, and my maternal great grandparents were from Cahuilla. Those are states in Mexico. But trying to get past them has been very hard, especially my maternal great grandparents, because they were poor and they didn't register everything. And, it costs you to register the births and the marriages. And I've heard that because of it being the cost, that they didn't register them on time, or they didn't register them at all. So
Um,
it's trying to find the records. And then I don't speak Spanish. I don't read Spanish. So trying to read the records, it's been like, yeah, that's fun. Although I am learning. I'm learning to recognize words and learning to recognize names. So it is an interesting thing.
well, there are always people on Twitter if you ever need, like, I don't speak Spanish. I'm learning French, but not fantastic. Uh, and so I'm sure there's someone on Twitter that can help you out if you ever need it.
True.
So what sources have you found most helpful in your research?
Baptisms, what you call it, church baptisms. They're very helpful because they, especially with the Mexican, they list the parents' names, where they were from. Like if they're registering in a state or a city that they're not from, they'll list where they're from. The grandparents for both the maternal and the paternal, which is very helpful when you're trying to trace lines. So if you can get that information, you can go ahead and continue to search information. Um, I I know that the older records, the baptism, the church baptisms for my English line have different information, and I'm trying to do my Scottish line, and that one has the witnesses, but not the grandparents that I can see. And it's
Ah,
like, okay, well, gotta do the research of the witnesses, and I have one line where he had 10 children. Yeah, I think it was 10 children, and there were most of the witnesses were different for each child. Some of them were the same, but most of them were different. It's just like, seriously, are these all relatives of his?
let's just hope they are.
Yeah, that's
Whether
that's
that's your
it.
close friends.
Yes, that one too.
For me, my great grandmother, my great grandmother on my father's side was one of 10, but not all of them made it to adulthood. I think
Mm.
one, two, three, maybe four, I think, passed away before they were possibly before the age of 3.
Oh wow.
Uh, I found, yeah. So there's this website done by the Irish government called Genealogy.ie, which is
Yes,
basically a
I've used that.
place where you can go and see. Yeah, it's very handy. And
Hmm.
one time I read from Irish Claire Santry, Irish Genealogy News, that they actually brought back. They added digitized images of records that were just indexes. So I was able to look at the two boys had died on the same day. Two of
Ouch.
my great grandmother's brothers had died on the same day. One was 2 weeks, the other was 2 years, I think, old, and from croup. And like that just kind of hit me because I mean it was the first kind of like it seemed odd to me, kind of because I deduced that the indexes I found were them, but obviously they didn't have the images online, so I couldn't look at
Right.
them. But when I saw that kind of, the same day, I was kind of thinking, this can't be them. And then I looked over and then it said Margaret Noon, mother. And I thought, it's them. So my great great grandmother had lost 2 of her sons on the same day in 1873.
That is sad.
Uh, yeah, it is.
And they're so
And
little. They're so little.
yeah. And it just kind of goes to show, like, it kind of shows that, the kind of tough times that ancestors went through,
Yes,
be what it
definitely.
may, whether it's loss of children or, loss of a husband or an accident
Hmm.
happening or something. Like, it it's sad to kind of see the kind of mortality in infants. Because I think
Yes,
it kind
that
of
is true.
just kind of thinks, well, if they were, still around, where would they be now? It,
Hmm.
it's it's just sad. It really is.
Yeah,
Um,
my great grandmother died in childbirth, having her last child, and she
oh,
had 5 children. And the story that I found out with that one is my great grandfather met a woman who had 7 children, and he fell in love with her. And this was shortly after his wife had died. Um,
right.
because he didn't want to have 12 children to take care of, he was going to give his children away to the orphanage. He took them to their grandmother's house, my second great grandmother's house, to say goodbye to her, and then he was going to take them to the orphanage. And she's like, no, 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 I'll take them. So she took all 5 of them and raised them. So my grandmother was raised by her grandmother. So I mean her grandmother. My grandmother was raised by her grandmother. The unfortunate thing was is that my second great grandmother was very matriarchal, which is something that is an English thing. So there were 2 women in the family of the 5, and she arranged the marriages for the 2 girls. So my grandmother was married off at the age of 17 to a man of 31 that she'd never met, didn't know, didn't love. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's just like, and she could not, by the time she was of age to divorce him, she was pregnant with my mother. So she couldn't divorce him. So she had my mother and my uncle, um, both in Pennsylvania, and they were living in Pennsylvania for a moment, and then I think my mom said when she was 8, they moved, and my grandfather brought them west. He moved to Utah. My mom finished growing up in Utah. The funny thing is that Utah was a state that allowed women to file for divorce. So when my grandmother caught her husband in bed with another woman, she had grounds to divorce him. So she did. But because she did that, she was cut out of the will. She was cut off from her family because she
Oh,
divorced the man that her grandmother arranged for her to marry, and that was a no-no, a big no-no in her grandmother's eyes. So
right.
so it's just like I
And
grew
like,
up with not knowing any of the family, not knowing anybody,
yeah,
and they didn't even know that we existed because of that being of her being cut
yeah,
off from her family, which is very sad, very sad.
yeah, it is. Like,
Hmm.
and I mean, it's different for every family what goes on. It's not
Yes.
like every family has this and every family has that. It's all
Hmm.
different.
Exactly.
Like, there's
Exactly.
nothing fair. That's what makes genealogy fun.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
there's always going to be a sad side to it, and that would
Yeah.
kind of seem like being cut off from family, and never hearing from them or anything like that.
Yeah. Exactly. I agree.
So, is there anything that you knew, sorry, that you now know that you wish you knew when you started?
Is there anything that I now know that I wish I knew when I started? Let's see. What did I answer for that one? Um. Oh. Yeah. Sources. I didn't cite my sources. Um. What you call it? When I first started, I printed out my research from the websites and had hard copies. I did not, you know, bookmark any websites. I didn't do anything, and I didn't cite where they came from. And I had an issue where I lost all of my hard copies. And I was just like, seriously? So trying to go back and recreate the research that I had done, and this was on one of my lines that is very old English. I couldn't recreate it. I couldn't find it. So it was hard. What I started doing was for all of the website information that I found, I started PDF printing. So I had an actual copy, a digital copy. And if I wanted to have a hard copy, then I would print a hard copy. And then I started using OneNote and started posting a lot of research in OneNote. And a few years ago, I'm not sure, been so many versions of OneNote that I've had, but I think the 2007, no, 2010. I don't remember. It's a version that's a few years old. It's a few years old. It started actually when you post paste something from OneNote, it gives you a link automatically. So even if I forget to post the link, it was always there. So that was kind of cool because that was something I was forgetting to do too. I was forgetting to post the link from the research that I was copying from the website. So if you highlighted stuff and copied the text and posted it in OneNote, it now posts a link from where you got it from, which is good. I like that. And you can now clip just like Evernote. I've tried using Evernote and I can't figure out how to use it. I'm going to stick with OneNote, but it also has a web clipper, so you can now clip entire websites, web pages. You can do it in little pieces if you want, or you can PDF it. So, and I like that. And you can also put images into what you call it, OneNote. I've done that. Images that I've taken off of Ancestry for book information. I'll go ahead and I'll put that in my OneNote, and then put the link from where I found it. So But yes, citing my sources, I did not
Yeah.
do. And I wish I had done that in the beginning, because if I had done it in the beginning, about 4 years of research would have not been destroyed.
Oh God.
Yes, yes.
I could just imagine, emotion building up, maybe a few tears in the eye, and just thinking, bugger.
I
That,
was
like,
banging my head
that,
up against the wall, because it's just like stupid, stupid, stupid.
oh God. Like, I could
Yeah.
imagine, you're probably thinking, well, off I go to, oh wait, I don't have that. And yeah, I can
Yes,
just imagine the annoyance
exactly.
that must have been.
Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
I've never thought of using OneNote, but I will actually try and start using it because it sounds like it's
I love
useful.
OneNote.
And
Yeah, I love OneNote. I've been using OneNote since before I was doing the genealogy research. When I was going to school, um, I this was before smartphones were integrated with Microsoft, OneNote, Word, and Excel. So when I was going to school, I was using my little, um, it was a Motorola uh, version 5 Windows phone. So it didn't have the touch screen. It was a little like almost like a BlackBerry that had the keypad in the bottom, and it had an SD card. So I would go ahead and I would put my information down, save it to the SD card, take the SD card out, put it in my laptop, bring up the document, and then post it to, because I went to school online for both my bachelor's and my master's. They were completely online. They were not ground schools. So I would post the information onto my school website. Then in 2007, the year I graduated from my bachelor's, I got my first touch Windows phone. And that's when they integrated the OneDrive, which was SkyDrive at the time, with the OneNote, with the Word, with Excel. So it's just like I could do everything on my phone and not have to have an SD card, and I could bring it up on my computer. Wow, that was cool. So I started
I
using
can
OneNote.
imagine.
Yeah. So I started using OneNote for my research notes when I would have to do research for my papers that I wrote for my class. And believe it or not, you think that there would be no research for accounting? Trust me, there's a lot of research for accounting. So
Oh yeah.
yeah,
No.
so I had to do a lot of paper writing. So there was a lot of stuff, and that's when I started using OneNote. Was back in 2005, but definitely 2007 integrated with the phone, and SkyDrive and now OneDrive, and I've been using it ever since. So when I started, uh, was it 2010 when or 2009 when I started using it for my genealogy research. So it's very helpful, very useful. I love it. I can
Yeah.
have it on my phone. I can bring something up that I was like, okay, this is what I researched at home. I posted on my OneNote. I'm at the library. Wait a minute. There was something that I was doing. Oh, that's right. I could go to my OneNote because I did it in my OneNote, bring it up on my OneNote, and then go ahead and go from there. It's like, yes, very cool.
Efficiency
Very
and
cool.
helpfulness.
Yes. And they say that you can use Evernote that way, but I have tried. I can't figure out how to do it. They say that you can sort it with tags, you can sort it with, in notebooks. And I've had Evernote for a long time too. I probably got it in like 2006. No, 2008 or 2008, I think, is when I got Evernote. But I just have not figured out how they do that. So I'll stick with my OneNote because I have, if you looked at my OneNote, you could see that I have these sections and subsections and sections within sections. So, and I like that.
Yeah.
They,
Oh
they,
yeah.
they don't recommend that for Evernote, having sections and subsections and sections within sections. They say too many sections in Evernote confuses it. But for my OneNote, it doesn't. I like it. So I'll keep
Ah
it.
yeah. Stick with what works.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely
Anyway,
trick with what works.
so what projects or ventures are you currently pursuing?
I am currently pursuing the research of my Scottish ancestor, um, who was married to my Irish ancestor, Ella. no, yeah, Ella Sharp. No, Rebecca Sharp. Rebecca Sharp, who married no, a descendant of my what you call it, Irish ancestor, because my Irish ancestor who came to the United States during the famine married a Harriet Davis, excuse me, and his son married Rebecca Sharp. Her line, I've just recently found out, traces to Scotland and the Sharp font, the Sharp line, and that has been very interesting. And that's where I was telling, what you call it, was explaining as far as trying to find out how the line works as far as different surnames. Um, People have in their trees a Helen Henderson or Henderson and a Helen Hendry, but they have it as one person. But there's a death record for a Helen Henderson the same year that her first child was born. So how is it that she could have had 9 more children if she was dead? So I thought that they were different people. But I'm finding out that Henderson and Hendry are actually the same surname. They've just evolved or different variations depending on where in Scotland they're from. And that's what I was doing. I was researching that to try and find out, well, is there a difference? Is there a similarity for them? Also, as well as doing research for Dar for one of my ancestors, Joshua Clark, who fought in the Revolutionary War. Um, just trying to find out information on his wife, who may have been Mary Thompson, may have been Mary Bowles. It's hard to tell because there's no marriage record that I can find for him. There are birth records, but it lists only Mary. So some people have Mary Bowles, some people have Mary Thompson. It's just like, seriously, which is which? Was he married to both of
Yeah,
them? I mean, he may have been married to both of them, but it's just the timeline for who is the parent of my ancestor Eleanor Clark. It could be actually Mary Bowles because of when Eleanor Clark was born and when there is a marriage record for Mary Bowles, but there is no marriage record for Mary Thompson. Or it could be that there's another with Joshua Clark that was married to a Mary Bowles, and it's not my Joshua Clark. So I'm still trying to figure that out. It's just interesting. And then my new endeavor of my Mayflower ancestors. I got a lot of stuff
well, at
working.
least, yeah, you never do. But it definitely sounds like, you've got your work cut out for you
That I
with
do. That I
your
do.
research.
Yes, that I do.
Anyway, so what aspect of genealogy do you like the most? So, like finding records, looking at photos, learning
It's the
stories, that sort of
hunt.
thing.
It's the hunt. I am a huge mystery buff. I love solving mysteries, and researching your lines is solving a mystery. And finding records that give you the information for solving that mystery is great. I love it. Photos, because I've not been really much into family photos. I don't have grandparents' family photos. I don't have great grandparents' family photos. I don't have uncles' family photos. So it's just photos have never been a thing for me. But finding my ancestors in records to solve the mystery of who they were, what they did, and where they fit in. That is my thing. I love it. Going
Yeah,
down those
because
rabbit holes for other people's.
oh yeah, rabbit hole. I mean, I got a message on Facebook recently. Well, my mum did. It was from someone who supposedly has a connection to my great grandfather, uh, and I'm trying to prove if it's right or not. And
Yeah,
another another because I'm trying out Facebook groups, so like family and so like sharing research through them. Um, the with one cousin that I was inviting to it, I asked them, did they want to join, and they said yes, I would. And also, I got a message from this lady saying that she wants to, she might have something to do with, you know, your great great granddad Dan Vaher, and I thought, okay, can
Cool.
you can you put me in contact, please? So I'm like a little private investigator now, just like trying to track the records and everything, and just kind of say, are you related? Are you related? And if no, and then oh, but typically for me, I
Yeah.
don't get much luck when it comes to kissing cousins. It's just and just seeing, like relatives of roots text, just kind of seeing, the amount of cousins that I'm kind of thinking,
Oh,
I
keep
don't
proving.
have
Yeah.
any. I
Really?
don't have any.
Well,
No, I never have any.
I had a for roots tech. I had 300 and I think the last count was 303 thousand cousins, and I'm like, sure, okay.
303,000.
I don't know where they came from, and there was no way I could have traced them. There was no way. So
Did you say
I
303,000, or did I just
yes,
suddenly mishear
no, I heard right. 303,000. It's like I don't know
you?
if that's right though. It's just like that's an awful lot. That is an awful
Imagine
lot.
trying to do that as a family reunion.
Yeah. No.
Oh dear. That you're just sort of like you need an awful lot of megaphones. Uh, just kind of go like, right, introduce yourselves. I'll be back in 20 years, and then everyone's just introducing themselves all the way down a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be mad. Absolutely mad.
Yeah, well,
Anyway,
if they've got their lines right, and that's the thing with family search that I've had problems with is that people have so much misinformation, and it drives me nuts. Because I was doing my tree on family search, and I had it to the amount that they say, the first 5 generations, and people kept changing my information. And it's just like, okay, that is correct. Stop changing it. And I change it back, and then they change it again, and then I change it back, and I was like, you know what? Never mind. I'm done. I'm done. Forget it.
uh,
So and I haven't checked it recently because the last time I looked at it, it was like what 4 years ago, 5 years ago. I'm sure that they've got lines in there that are wrong. Um, I mean, even the information that they have for um, my grandfather and what you call it, his name and stuff, they have it incorrect because I had it correct, and then someone changed it. It's just like, come on, people, stop doing that. But
hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be pros and cons wherever you go with things.
yeah,
Like some
true.
people might like the collaboration aspect. Some might go like, yes, let's do it. And some might kind of go like, not really too keen. Um, for me, and I don't totally let it influence, but kind of that is something that kind of deters me a little in using it. But
Yeah.
I am giving it a go. I am kind of, dipping my toe in the water and trying it out and just seeing how I do. And just see how I go. So what's an interesting story or event that you've discovered about your ancestors?
Hmm. Well, I already gave you my Robert Cole.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We can move on if you prefer.
No. Okay. Well, a sad story. I have a sad story. My what you call it? Let's see. Who is he? Herminio. Herminio is my great grandfather. Herminio Mencinas is my great grandfather on my maternal line. So my father's mother's parents were Herminio Mencinas and Juana Martinez. Um, I had a heck of a time finding information on them, and I found out why. Of course, it took somebody with the newspaper's subscription to find this information because I didn't have a newspaper subscription. But I found out that what had happened was Herminio was in a bar fight and was stabbed, and this was in 1926. Um, he went to the hospital, and he sadly died Christmas Day, 1926, 4 days after he had been stabbed by a person that he was defending the honor of a woman against this person that was, I guess, disparaging her. He had a lot of values, family values, and felt that you don't talk bad about a woman. And so that was what had happened. They'd never found the person who had stabbed him. They think that he fled and went back to Mexico to get away from obviously being charged with it became a murder. Sadly, his wife died 11 months after his death. She died November of 1927. That caused a
Wow.
lot of problems for the family. My grandmother was the eldest. She was the only girl in the family, but she was the eldest. So she went to a home. She was 17. So she went to a home for girls that I guess they trained them to be maids because she became a maid. And the boys, there were five of them, went to a boys' home, and unfortunately, some of them got into trouble. My great uncle Leo Mencinas, in 1930, not a mere 3 years after he went to the home and his losing his parents, was arrested in January of 1930 for second-degree robbery, got 5 years in prison, went to Folsom Prison here in California, because it was all here in California, died 11 months after being sent to prison. So he died in November of 1930. So it's just like, seriously, that's just sad. He died a few months after the 1930 census. But yeah, and he's buried at Folsom Prison. That's, a sad story for my paternal line.
Yeah, that is crazy. That
It
is
is. It
horrible.
is. It is.
So, is there a type of record that you like most and why?
I like most. Um, I'm gonna go back to baptisms. Baptisms are the best that I have found for most of my, like I said, for most of my Mexican family, because they list so much information on them. It's not just the name of the person, the name of the parent and the name of the child. They list the grandparents. They list on both sides. They list from where they're from. Not all baptisms that I have found have done that, but most of the baptisms in Mexico list this. And I do know that some of the baptisms, at least for older times, not for current times, list a good amount of information here in the United States. So it just depends on the church that they were baptized in. So, you know, if they're Catholic, they've got a lot of information. So
Yeah,
some of my ancestors were Catholic and some of them were Protestant that I'm finding.
right. Fair enough. So, now, for anyone watching, I'm almost done with my questions. So, if you have any for Teresina, do get them in now, or else you'll miss your chance. And you don't really want to really miss the chances. Anyway, what am I on about? So, what does genealogy mean to you?
Genealogy means family history. Um, I've always been, because of the situations with both my parents, my father being disconnected from his family for his own reasons, and my mother being disconnected from her family because of situations with her grandmother. Um, I've not had a family, so to speak. It's just been an insular family, my
Hmm.
mom and my siblings, and that's it. When I had my own children, it was just me and my children, because my ex-husband was mm, another subject. But and he comes from a very large family. You want to talk about a lot of kids? His mom had 20 children, and my ex-husband was the last surviving child of 17. There were 17 children that survived to adulthood, and he was the youngest of those 20, of those 17. But yeah, she had 20 children. I was like, woman, what in the world were you thinking? I mean, baby after baby after baby after baby after baby. No way. That is crazy. But yes, he's also recalls from what you call, comes from Mexicans, and his mom comes from Chihuahua, Mexico, which is next to Cahuilla. So it's just like, that's interesting to know that he comes from an area that's very similar to where my ancestors come from. But yeah, just in genealogy means family history. Just being able to connect to your ancestors and being able to know how they live their lives, and being able to relate to certain things and aspects of their lives if it was parallel to yours. Um, I grew up very poor. And when I say poor, I don't mean, oh, gee, I lived in a neighborhood where the rent was this. No, I grew up poor. We had no electricity at times. We had no running water at times. We had no food at times. I remember taking a bath in a tub with melted ice. And let me tell you, that's cold. It is really cold. So, and then having to do homework by kerosene lamp. So, I mean, I was not in the 1800s with there's no electricity, but because my
Hmm.
mom was poor and she didn't have always money for paying for the electricity, we had kerosene lamps. And so we did our homework by kerosene lamp. So I can kind of relate to certain aspects of what my ancestors went through because I kind of lived through certain things of that. Taking a bath in a cold river. I didn't take a bath in a cold river, but I took a bath in a cold bathtub. So, but
Yeah,
it's connecting. It's connecting. That's what it kind of means to me. It's
absolutely,
connecting with.
definitely. So, where can they find you? Like
They
on
can find
social
me on
media?
Facebook. Yep, they can find me on Facebook. I'm the only Teresina Lloyd. They can find me at Twitter, at TM no yeah at TML Lloyd. They can find me on Instagram, uh, only for my pics, I believe is what it is. They can find me on they can find me on LinkedIn too. I'm Teresina Lloyd on LinkedIn, so you can kind of find me.
Oh,
Just Google Teresina Lloyd and you'll find me.
it's handy when you have to like not a very common name because it'll make
Yes,
people, you know, you kind of are more well known if you kind of have if you have a peculiar name. Like if you're like me, if you look up my name on Facebook, like you would be scrolling for an awful long time. I'm not the first
yeah,
one to show up.
Daniel. Yeah,
Uh,
Daniel is a
yeah,
very common name. Yes.
yeah. And my surname, surprisingly, is a lot more common than I thought. So yeah, there's that as well. So what? Obviously, with times are changing. What advice would you give to a young person starting out in genealogy?
Cite your sources. Make sure that you cite your sources because things change so dramatically. If you're finding things online, especially, you got to make sure that you have a website. It there are websites that just go poof, they go away. So make sure that you know where you got the information from. Um, Books will go out of print, and sometimes they're very hard to find. So cite those, but definitely cite your sources because you want to be able to not only go back to the research if you want to revisit it, but if someone picks up where you left off, they want to be able to have that continuation. And you
Yeah,
can't do that if you're not citing your sources. Yeah. So, I mean, you could be a simple hobbyist as long as you cite your sources. You are serious enough to know you're not a name
yeah,
collector. I've heard so many people say, "Well, these people are name collectors. They have 90,000 people in their family tree. How many of them do have they really researched?" I have to agree. In 14 years of me doing my research, I have only now 500 names in my tree, and that's
I'm
it.
not
But
far
I have
behind.
I have actually made sure that every single one of those names is accurate. So, and I'll have little trees that people can't look at because I'm still researching that line. And once I finish researching that line, I'll merge it with my bigger tree. So,
Hmm.
I mean, if in all total, I probably have about 650 names. That includes my ex-husband's lines and the I think it's like I have six little trees that I'm researching, different lines. So yeah, if I were to put them all together, I still would only have less than 1,000.
Yeah. Like on my father's tree, I have, I think, about 360. But I mean, what I've done, and people might kind of think why, it's because, you know, a lot of people are interested, and, you know, they mightn't necessarily be very tech savvy, so they might stumble on, you know, like if it's someone on my dad's side, they might go onto my mother's tree, and then they go like, who are these people? And vice versa. People on mum's side could go onto my dad's side and then go like, who are these people? So I split it into one for my mum's and one for my dad's. My dad's, I
Okay.
probably have about 360, and on my mum's, I think about 200. But I mean, it's better if you kind of like research them in depth, and you
Yes.
know, like there's this one person that on my dad's side is basically every one of my trees shows up in this person's tree. I've basically done an unofficial one place study, and they have about 32,000 people in the tree. And it's
Wow.
like,
See, that's
how
what
can
I'm
you
talking
be
about.
sure?
Yeah, that's a lot of people. I mean, that really is a lot. Unless you've been researching your whole entire life, in which it basically means that you're 80 years old and you started researching when you were 13. That is, what, 77, no, that's 67 years of
67
research.
years.
There's
Yeah.
no way that you could have that many people and have sourced every single one of them. So, and that's
Oh,
another
yeah.
place you
No,
can find
no.
me. I have a blog. I forgot my blog. Searching for family. What do you call it? Searching for family blog. .com. When I do something, I will post something about a discovery on my family. I don't write a whole lot of blogs. I have probably about 7 blogs I've written since I started the blog 3 years ago, 4 years ago. But yeah,
Well, I mean, the second version of my website, Down's Genealogy, uh, I basically transferred from the Weebly one that I had since June 2019 when I started out, and then transferred over to WordPress probably in March 2020,
yeah.
or before that. But it was just, you know, I found it a bit easier to use and whatnot, and I just used
Yes,
that
WordPress
instead.
is easy.
But yeah, so like like I have hardly any new content on there because, you know, I don't tend to, you know, post much content. It's more Twitter, it's more social media I work on, and
Hmm.
uh Hidden Branch as well. So I'm still, you know, taking that on as well. So the website is kind of taking a bit of a backseat, but it's still there. It's still online. It's still stuff on there.
Yeah.
Mightn't be very long, mightn't be good quality, but there's still stuff on there. So finally, excuse me. In your opinion, do you think? Now, I really hope I put this on the question sheet. I keep thinking I've updated it, but then I'm, I keep thinking, have I? Have I? Have I? Hopefully, I have. So, in your opinion, do you think that there is like sufficient outlets for young genealogists to connect and collaborate?
I don't know. That's hard to say because I'm a part of Next Gen Genealogical Network. I'm actually their treasurer. So I've been a part of that group for 3 years now, and unfortunately, it's just like they were very active in the beginning, and then they kind of fell to the wayside because of 2020.
No.
And
Yeah.
we have a few people who kind of came off of the uh, what I guess committee, as you would call it,
Yeah.
that were very active and very, pushed a lot of things. So we're trying to get back to being active. That I'm aware of, your Hidden Tree, Next Gen are the only two things that I'm aware of. But then I'm not very active in the genealogical world. I do know that there was, let's see, was it 2 years ago? I think it was. There was a young lady that was very active in DNA and doing something really kind of interesting with it, with Oh, she wrote a program for it. Forget what her name is. Oh my gosh. Michelle. Is it Michelle? Rebecca. I can't remember her name, but she got me onto this Discord um, channel, and it's got all ages of people, and it's got all from all over the country. So it's just, I think that people need to understand that there are resources out there for young genealogists, but people need to take young genealogists serious. Oh, you're a young genealogist, you don't really know what you're doing, or you're a young
Hmm.
genealogist, you don't really understand. No, that's not true. I actually have more respect for a lot of the young genealogists. Look at Eric Shorbert. He has, I've known him since he was a part of Next Gen Genealogy. He goes to Elizabeth College now, and he's been in the news because he has done a lot for solving cold cases. And he's only 19, I think. His first cold
Yeah.
case that he solved was done at 17 years old. He's a young genealogist. So they are serious. They do a lot of work. So people need to take them seriously and understand that they're not just doing this just so, something to do. No, there are a lot of young genealogists that are very serious at what they're doing. I wish there was more resources out there for young genealogists, and people would take them more seriously and want to include them in a lot of the things that they have, because there are a lot of resources out there, and they need to understand that young genealogists are serious people.
And that's a very good point to end on. So, without further ado, I think we shall end. So, thank you, Theresina, for coming on. You've been a fabulous guest, and
You're
I've
welcome.
thoroughly enjoyed having you on.
Well, thank you for having me.
So, thanks to are watching now and will eventually watch on YouTube, hopefully. Please do and like and subscribe and whatever. I'm still not good in the lingo, but bear with me. Uh, anyway, so see you next time,
Yes.
everyone.
All right. Bye.